faces. Thank you so much, Kat and Kat, for having me, and to all of you in London for such a warm welcome. We've had a fun past few days exploring the city before coming here tonight to talk to all of you. So when I thought about what I was going to talk about today, I mean, certainly we're going to learn a ton over the next 24 hours about blogging. I don't really need to talk to you in details about all those things that you're going to learn from so many of your peers here. So I really want to talk to you about a few things that I've discovered, especially in the last couple years of my career and of my life, and lessons that I've learned along the way. And when I look back at my history of my life, even from a child, I realized how these larger lessons have really played a role for me throughout. So a friend recently told me this quote: "If you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done before." And I think it's really interesting because I'm terrified of change. I'm one of those people who likes to drive the same way to work every day. I like to eat the same thing. I like to sort of have the same routine. And when something in my life changes, I freak out. I figure out ways not to do it. And then eventually someone convinces me it's gonna be okay. I do it, and it improves my life for the better, whatever reason. And I'll give you examples throughout this talk of how that's happened many times in my life and how I've grown better and stronger because of it. So just so you know a little bit about me, a lot of people know me as a blogger, but really I try to remind myself, and I try to remind people I meet, I'm not just a blogger. There's a lot of different things that I do, and blogging happens to be the vehicle for everything else I do. I'm a graphic designer, I'm a blogger, I'm an author, a product designer, a business consultant, and a mother. Oh Joy, which I consider my brand, includes a design studio, a blog, a line of products, and a lifestyle brand that includes fashion, food, and home decor. And in general, the things that people tend to know Oh Joy for: color, pattern, whimsy, sweet and unexpected details, twists on the everyday, and positivity and inspiration. Now let's go all the way back to 1992. One of the first moments that I really felt like there was something inside of me that wanted to start my own business or become my own self-entrepreneur was when I was 13 years old. I was very crafty. I liked to do things like making things. I didn't really play with dolls. I wasn't into princess stuff. So my mom took me to her calligraphy classes, and I'm from Philadelphia, which is on the East Coast, and my mom took me to the Philadelphia Calligrapher Society, the classes that they held on the weekends. It sounds very fancy, anything with the word society in it. And so I was the youngest person in the class. I went religiously every week, and I learned how to do calligraphy. Now, this is back in the day where I didn't even know calligraphy was cool. I didn't even know that was something that people wanted to do. And so I started taking it. I would practice and practice and practice. And so finally I was like, it looks kind of good. So I'm gonna just go and offer this as a service to people that I don't know. And so I would make business cards. I had a really unique name called Calligraphy by Joy. And I drew business cards. I put them in mailboxes in my neighborhood. And I just sat there and I was like waiting, like somebody's gonna call me. They're gonna ask me to do their wedding invitation envelopes. They're gonna ask me to write their Christmas cards. And then nothing happened. And I was like, oh, nobody wants to hire me. Eventually, what I realized was I couldn't just sit there and wait, because it's just like any other form of traditional advertising. Sometimes you just sit there and wait and it doesn't happen. You have to go out and be more proactive about it. And so I was taking karate at the time. I'm actually a second-degree black belt. In fact about me. And I told my karate instructor, hey, when we do the black belt certificates every year, can I write them? Can I write those names? Because my handwriting is better than average, and it surely looks better than whatever they were already doing. So he said, sure. And I didn't charge any money. I did it for free. But after that, all the parents of the students who were getting their green belts, blue belts, yellow belts, whatever it was, would see it, and then they would ask me to do invitations or Christmas cards. So, you know, I might have made $100 or something that year, but it was just the start of that desire to do something that I've created on my own. A couple years later, I decided I wanted to bake. And so I started really loving banana bread. It was one of those things where once you get the recipe down, you can just keep making loaf after loaf. You can send it in the mail. It keeps for a week in the refrigerator. And so my parents, who I have to mention, are entrepreneurs themselves. They came to this country a few years before I was born, and they have Thai restaurants. And so I always grew up with that mentality. So my dad said, let's take your banana bread and let's give samples to the customers at the restaurant after they have their dinner, and they can try it, and if they like it, maybe they'll buy it from you. So that's what we did. We gave them samples, and I sold like 8 loaves that year. It was around Christmas time. And I was like, sweet. I charged like $2 per loaf. It was not very profitable, but it gave me that inspiration again to keep trying to learn new things and go after new things. All right, so we're skipping ahead. We've gone through high school, we've gone through college. I did major in graphic design. I knew I either wanted to be a geneticist or I wanted to be a graphic designer. And so I chose to go to school for graphic design with the hopes that I could make it the whole way through and not change my mind, and luckily I did. So I left school, which was in upstate New York, for New York City. 2 weeks after graduation, I moved. I didn't have a job. I just said, I know I want to live in New York because that's where it's at. That's where you go when you want to be in a creative field. With no job, remember, and then September 11th happened. I actually had a job lined up maybe a month before. They were ready to hire me. I think I went into my first week. That whole thing happened. I got laid off, and I was like, here I am again. Of course, I was happy to be alive, number one, but number two, I was again looking for employment. Luckily, I did get hired back by that company a few months later once the dust had settled a little bit. But one thing I wanted to mention about this particular job is that I did not apply to a listing that was online. I didn't happen to meet somebody at a networking event. I sent resumes and samples of my work out to every single company in New York that I possibly wanted to work for. I made sure those packages were beautiful. I made sure that they were decorated. I made sure that the envelope on the outside was something people had never seen before, and that is what got everyone's attention. Now, a lot of people saw it and contacted me, and they said, you know what, we don't have a job available, but we love what you sent. Thank you so much. We'll always remember it. And that was great, but at the same time, I was like, oh, no job. But the company that did end up hiring me had a position open. They were about to post something on Craigslist, but instead they said, you know what, here's this girl who happened to send it, who went after it, and she found us before we found her, so we're gonna give her a chance. So skip to 2 years later, I worked at this, I worked here for 2 years. It was a boutique graphic design studio in New York that had a lot of fashion clients. So this was really my entryway into fashion and built my love of fashion. I got to go to Fashion Week every season. I got to meet designers. It was really a dream come true for an early 20-something to have this opportunity. A couple years in, I did grow tired of designing sort of the same things for the same clients. I wanted to design things for real people that they could actually use. So I wanted to design products. And here I go into this place where I wanted to do something that I'd never done before. So how do you do that? I was trained as a graphic designer, but I'd never gotten any education as a surface pattern or textile designer, yet I wanted to apply for a job doing one of those things. So I just went and I used whatever Photoshop and Illustrator skills I had, and I created a portfolio to be able to show to other textile companies in New York to potentially hire me. I didn't know anything about repeat or anything about scale of pattern at the time, and if any of you are familiar with that, you know what that means. So I pretty much just tried to wing it, and I sent out a portfolio, same thing as when I looked for my first job, where I was just sending things out to every single company I could possibly work for, and made sure I sent them a really beautiful package. So I did get hired by Cynthia Rowley, who at the time had a line at Target. Now this is when Target, I know you guys don't have Target here, but from what I hear, you know what the store is. Target at the time was not what it is now. This is the first year that they started working with designers. They worked with Isaac Mizrahi and Cynthia Rowley as two of their very first designer collaborators. So this is when it started becoming really cool. And I got to design a whole year's worth of products and so many different things. This is pretty much where I learned to design patterns and products and really found that love of doing that. I remember I went to a Target store with my mom after some of the pieces I designed came out, and I saw a girl begging her mom to buy some of the PJs I designed. And for me, that was one of the best feelings, because in contrast to the job I had before, this was an actual thing that somebody was going to wear and get and like make them happy, as opposed to a poster or a sign, something that I felt like really connected with people. I loved this job and I learned so much from it. However, my personal life was transitioning. My boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, was starting medical school. We had been doing long distance for a very long time, and it was time to live in the same city. So he was living in Philadelphia at the time. I was in New York, which is about a 2-hour car ride from each other. And so I decided to leave my job, again, with no new job, and move to Philadelphia. I'm one of those people who likes to be very safe, and I like to plan things. And so to leave a job for no job, again, was definitely not something that I looked forward to. So I did it. I was trying to get a job at Anthropologie. You guys now have an Anthropologie here, so you know it's a beautiful store. They have wonderful things, and my dream was to get a job working at the home decor department there. I said, you know what? I'm gonna work for Anthropologie, that's it. Everything that I set my mind to, mostly I accomplished. I just thought that was the thing. And so I managed to get an interview, and they said, you know what, we like you, but we don't have a position available. Somebody has to quit for you to get a job here. And so it was one of those things, well, I don't want someone to lose their job, but I really want this job too. But it ended up being one of the best things for me, because what happened was I didn't get that dream job I wanted, but it forced me to figure out something else. So I started a blog. I had just gotten engaged. I had just moved to a new city. I was now freelancing, and I was freelancing sort of as an interim thing. I wasn't planning to have it be a permanent thing. But because of the blog, I saw that people were finding me, and they were hiring me for my graphic design skills as a result of what they saw on my site. They knew my aesthetic, they got my taste. I might not have necessarily shown my graphic design skills super often, but it was sort of, they helped them make that connection. It was an easier sell once they knew they wanted to hire someone with my skills. So I started it in 2005. Within a year of starting my blog, I realized, hey, you know what? I'm getting enough work that I can turn this into a full-time thing. And that became the start of Oh Joy, the business, and the design studio. Really, I never had any intentions of becoming an entrepreneur, of starting my own business. It's one of things that just happened. I think that sometimes the best things in life really are happy accidents, where you don't ever intend for them to happen, but they do. Now, the nice thing about once I started my own business is, yes, there are certainly times, I think, when you start any type of career that you need to do things for a little bit less money, or you might take on a client that you don't really love. But the great thing is that I was able to really think about, what did I love from my last couple of jobs? And that included branding and designing logos from my first job. And I also loved packaging. I loved designing patterns. So I really tried to focus on showing people that those were the things that I could do, and therefore I was able to get more of that type of work. So some of the samples that are on the screen include some glasses and some candle packaging for Urban Outfitters, and then also some more boutique beauty brands that I love doing packaging for. All right, so it got to the point where here I was designing for clients again, designing for other people, but I really wanted products. My eventual goal was to have my brand name on products that people would use, that would make them happy, and they could use within their everyday life. So I started a stationery line. Now really, I wanted to start a bedding line, but the cost of printing and yardage and manufacturing and all of that, if you've ever done it or looked into it, is very expensive, and it was not something that I could afford to do. So I said, okay, I can afford to save up enough to have some notebooks printed and some cards printed. I also racked up my credit card bills, and I just sort of made it happen. And so in 2007, I launched my stationery line at the New York Stationery Show, which happens every May. And so I had that for a couple years, where I sold to various, not only independent boutiques, but also large retailers like Anthropologie and Kate's Papery and Paper Source. Now what happened with that is you realize there are pluses and minuses to every business. I grew tired of the production part of it. We were living in a tiny 900 square foot apartment, and I would have these orders from Anthropology for thousands and thousands of pieces, and I would have me and my mom and my husband and my intern all packing stuff like late throughout the night. I would have my cats walking all over the packaging and on the boxes, and they were covering every single inch of the apartment that we lived in. And it was just one of those things where you look back and you're like, I thought it was so glamorous to do this. But here I am spending 5% of the time designing and 95% of the time packaging and shipping and printing labels and the stuff that for me was not so fun. Some people like the different shifts, but for me I really felt like there needs to be another way that I can have my products out there. That's when I learned about licensing. So I started by taking the stationery into licensing. I partnered with a company called Chronicle Books, which is based in San Francisco in the States, and I did more stationery, specifically home office and notebooks, and then I wanted to do more licensing. I realized how great it was to be able to partner with a larger company who already creates these products and has the ability to sell it and distribute it and manufacture it, and I can design it and really focus on the creative part. So I went into wedding invitations and wallpaper, and also baby clothing. So this is when I was really approaching these companies. Now, a lot of people say to me, oh, Joy, all these people must come to you and they must approach you and you're so lucky that everyone comes to you. And to be honest, 95% of the things that have happened in my career are all things that I have gone after. All of these collaborations, especially in the early days, I said, you know what, I really want to do wallpaper. Who's doing wallpaper really well right now? And who's open to the idea of working with a designer if they're not already? And I went and I approached them. I told them why I felt like I was different enough from the other designers they were working with, but yet while I still fit into the collections they were selling. And for me, that's been a key thing throughout my career, is that if I want something to happen, I go and I figure out who I need to contact and what I need to do to make it happen. Because just like, you know, from the very beginning when I was 13 with those calligraphy business cards, people don't just find you. You have to put yourself out there and they have to know where to find you. Okay, so change. 2009, my husband had to take a job in San Diego for a year. I cried, I was so upset. I said, I can't leave the East Coast, I love the East Coast, what am I gonna do in California? Everyone's so lazy there. They don't work, they just go surfing all day. And so, begrudgingly, I left the East Coast for San Diego. Now, if any of you have ever been to San Diego, it's the best weather on earth. It's pretty much perfect and beautiful all year round, and you can wear whatever you want all year round. So I transitioned there because my business was mobile. I could go. I didn't have an excuse of, oh, my job is in Philadelphia. And what ended up happening was I loved it more than I realized. Within a few months, I was happier. I was nicer to my husband. He kept saying, wow, you're really nice to me out here. And I said, you know what, I don't think I can go back to the East Coast. He had just gone on interviews for the following years, his job. He had gotten 5 or 6 job offers, which is pretty awesome. Yet here I was saying, I don't want to go back there. I think I might cry every day if I have to go back there. And I think I need to stay in California. And he says, I don't know if there's a job there. I don't know if I can get one. I was like, just try, let's try and make it happen. And he saw how much happier I was because of the weather, because of the change of scenery. And luckily he did get a job in LA, which is where we live now. Now, this is another example of the change thing that I was talking about earlier, because for me, this has been the biggest change of my life, is moving from one end of the country to the other, away from my family, away from friends, away from everything that I had gotten familiar with in the first 30 years of my life. And it was the best thing ever. I mean, I could go on to you about why LA, California has been important to me, not only personally with friendships and relationships I've made, but also as a person, as now a mother. But it's that thing of embracing change that I feel like, okay, when I have that again in the future, try not to be scared of it, because something good will come out of it, even though you don't know what it is yet. Okay, so a couple books. Around between 2010 and 2012, I had a couple of books come out about, the first one, Creative Ink, was about freelancing, and the second one, Blog Ink, was about blogging. So these were two topics I was very passionate about because it's pretty much what I spent the first few years of my career doing and learning. And certainly I would not have felt like I could write this book 5 years prior to these dates, but I had learned so much and so many people were asking me questions and asking me for advice that I felt like I had enough in my brain to put it out there and publish it. Now, I certainly wasn't confident about these. I mean, these are things I was scared to death about. I'm going to put everything that I think I know into a book, and I'm going to hope that you read it and that you like it and that you want to buy it and that you will think it was worth your $15. So these were both things that were definitely leaps of faith for me to be able to do. And I'm so glad I did, because I learned a lot. You know, not everyone's going to give you a positive review. I'll go on Amazon sometimes and see the couple people who have said things about the book or have said negative things, but I remember how many other people have said all positive things and have given it all great reviews. And so this was the beginning of the entryway into books for me. All right, so 2011, a baby comes along and changes everything. And I say that because, again, you know, I don't like change. And I expected, okay, this baby thing, I know it's kind of like an adjustment, but you know, I'm a good multitasker. I can do a lot of things at one time. What's a baby? I mean, really. And then the first 3 months I cried like every day. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. And my husband was like, it's okay. And I honestly freaked out. I did not show that so much publicly, but I really did not know what I was doing, and I could not figure out how to balance my business and trying to be a wife and trying to have friends and a social life and trying to take care of this child that, like, I don't know what you want, just tell me what you want. I can't figure it out. It took me, I would say, a good year and a half before I really figured it out. I mean, not that I still know, but it got me to a place where I was comfortable. And for any of you who are parents, you know what I mean, and someday, if you're not a parent yet, you will know what I mean, but it's one of those things where it really changes your life and it puts your life into perspective. And I think that was the thing for me that it really did. It made me realize, yes, my business is so important. I still love it. I still want to work in addition to being a mother. And it helped me to focus on all of those things. But more than anything else, it made me realize I can't do everything. I really need to ask people for more help. I need to try and rely on my friends more. I can't try and pretend like I'm Superwoman and that I can do it all. And just that vulnerability of what you realize about your life at that time really came through for me. Okay, so within a year of having my daughter Ruby, at the time my blog was growing. I was gaining more readers. It was starting to be one of those things where I had contributors. I had about 5 freelancers who were working for me at the time who would contribute a once-a-week blog post on different topics. They were all things that I had approved and I would see, but you would see a post and you would see Dash Bree or Dash Joanna, and you would see someone else's name pop up. And for me, it worked for a few years where it was becoming sort of more of a magazine than a personal blog. And it was a way for me to be able to get more content out there that I couldn't personally do because I was trying to do other things as well. But around 2012, a year after Ruby, I was just like, you know what, this isn't feeling right to me anymore. And I was scared about this because the very typical blog path, and one that I wrote about in my book, in Blog Inc., was okay, you get busier, more people read your blog, get help, get a contributor, have people, you know, have columns in your blog. And it's just one of those things that you say, that's what happens. But here I was doing that, and I was about to take it all away. And so I was thinking about it, and one of my contributors who became my friend after a while, we were sitting down to breakfast, I remember, and I was talking about it, and she goes, you want to get rid of me, don't you? And I was like, I don't, but I do. And what it really came down to was that I was sharing more of my personal journey again. It was about, not just about being a mother, because I wasn't necessarily turning into a mom blog, but it was like I wanted to be able to share that part sometimes. I wanted to be able to share the food stuff sometimes. I wanted to be able to share the design stuff sometimes. And it just felt disconnected when I would say one day, you know, it's really hard to be a mom, and all of a sudden you see a column from some other name that is not Joy. So I chose to do that and go back to posting just 1 time a day instead of 3, and it being just me instead of having all this extra help. And you know what, to be honest, it's one of those things where I don't regret doing it, But at the same time, I don't have necessarily those people to rely on anymore. So I just had to remember, okay, let's focus on quality over quantity, and let's just remember it's about your personal journey. So around this time, if you've been reading blogs for a while or you've had a blog for a while, the structure sort of changed about how bloggers were making money. In the very beginning, it's all about the blog ad. It's all about how much can I charge for this and how many ads can I have. But then companies, especially in the States, I know I was talking to Kat about this, how companies here are a little bit more delayed in working with bloggers and seeing the value of it. But in the States, people are really starting to get it. And so I was starting to do more sponsored content, where I would partner with a company and I would come up with an idea of how we could convey whatever it is that they were wanting to work with me to convey. So I started collaborating with more brands. Here are some examples of some boutique brands in the US. And some examples of some larger brands that I worked with. And this was a really great way for me to explore, well, how can I take what a brand wants, but also make it my own? And not just be a commercial for a product, but something that inspires people. And I think that's something I'm sure we'll talk about tomorrow, but where I don't want people to come to my site and say, you know what, Joy just got paid to do that, and so now it looks like a commercial. I want people to say, wow, I learned something, or that was inspiring, or I got a recipe, or I got a tip, or there's something that I just learned that I can apply to my life, and oh, P.S., yeah, she did it in collaboration with the brand. So we skipped to 2013, this is last year. I was thinking, what is something that I haven't done that I really don't want to do? And it was video. Around this time, I had gotten an agent, which sounds very LA, I know, and he said, Joy, you really should do TV. And I said, no, I don't want to be on TV. You should really do videos. And I was like, well, at least that's like a smaller scale thing I can do within the context of my own timing. So we said, okay, let's start a YouTube channel. And it's one of those things where starting a YouTube channel is basically like starting a blog from scratch. The way you have to grow it, the way you have to nurture it, it's like a child. And I did it. I did it because I said, you know what, I'm terrified of speaking in front of the camera. I don't really think that people really want to watch me. But again, it's a challenge. Like it was the first time I think I said yes to something so easily that I really didn't want to do. And you know, it's still a work in progress. It's one of those things where you're like, not that many people are watching it. But you do it and you learn something about yourself. And for me, it was a way to provide content in a different way. I got used to doing posts, I know how to do those, but how do I present stories in video format? How much of it do I talk? How much of it do I not talk? So all of those things helped for me to challenge myself even more. Along that same time, so 2013, I got my first employee and an office. Now at the time, no one really understood why I was doing that, because it's like, why does a blogger need an office? Why does a blogger need an employee? But again, I don't consider myself to be just a blogger. There were a lot of other projects in the works. There was a Target deal that I had just signed, knowing that I was going to have products coming out the following year, which is this year. I had a possible book deal in the works. I had a couple other licensing projects in the works. And it was getting to the point where I really couldn't do it all myself, especially with my priority of being a mother to my daughter and wanting to get home at a reasonable time. So I got 2 employees, one to assist with everyday sort of administrative things, one to help with creative ideas and production for the videos, and I also had a freelance that I hired to help me design the Target items that we're going to launch the following year. Because of that, I could no longer work from my home. I comfortably worked from home for about 8 years. I rolled out of bed. I got to work in my pajamas. It was amazing, and I loved it, and so I was kind of sad to leave that comfort zone, but I couldn't have my employees passing by my cat litter box on the way to my home office, and so I said, okay, this is the time to take that risk. Now I was terrified yet again, because here we have salaries to pay, we have another rent to pay, we have all these expenses that I didn't know 100% for sure if I was going to be able to cover, because nothing really in this world is 100%. And so I took the risk, and it's been the best decision. I am now able to give things to other people. I've learned to trust other people. Now granted, it's still hard to release some of that creative control, as a lot of us know as creative people, but at the same time it allows me to do more things. Also to have the space just to work and to breathe, and to not have my daughter there in the other room where I can hear her and get distracted. All of those things sort of came together at a great time. All right, so 2014, a couple months ago, the Oh Joy for Target Party and Entertaining collection launched, and it includes 4 seasons. 1 collection has come out so far, and there are 3 more coming out this year. And for me, this was pretty much my dream project. Ever since having worked with Target as an employee for Cynthia Rowley back in 2003, I said, someday I want to have my own line at Target. And I didn't think it was going to happen as soon as it did, but I had an opportunity again to pitch it and to present myself to somebody over there, and I just I pulled together a presentation very quickly. I had this very short window of time, and I said, I'm gonna pitch exactly what I wanna do, and I just keep my fingers crossed. And so it all happened very quickly in terms of getting this stuff done and made and manufactured for it to come out this year, but there it is. Also, a month later, I launched a couple other collections. It seemed like all this stuff happened at the same time because they all came out at the same time, but really, they all happened over the course of last year, spread out at different times. A children's bedding collection with the Land of Nod, which is the kids' line from Crate and Barrel. And then a diaper bag with Feed. And Feed does wonderful work to help families across the country, where the proceeds from every bag help to benefit children and mothers in other less fortunate countries. Okay, so another thing that nobody knows about yet, you guys are going to be the first to find out, is that I've been working for 2 years with a couple other bloggers. You may know Taza, Josh and Naomi from the Taza blog, and we're launching an app this month, fingers crossed, and this is an app that basically helps to bring blog content and other content that bloggers want to share all together in one place. As a blogger, I've certainly noticed over the years, over the last year or 2 especially, as everybody is mobile, that people aren't really commenting on my blog as much as they used to. They're commenting on Instagrams. I will get 5, 6 the number of Instagram comments on the same photo as I will if that photo was also on the blog. And it's because everybody's on their phones. You're waiting in line at the bank, you're waiting in line somewhere, you're at a restaurant, your friend went to the bathroom, you pull out your phone. And so people need to be mobile. And so we wanted a way to be able to bring your blog content instantaneously to the app, so it will import your blog post as an RSS feed, but also you can share photos and videos, and then my favorite thing is that you can tag everything and it can lead you out. So I'm not going to talk too much about the app because you guys will find out about it more when it becomes public, but you're able to add a link to images. So if I click on the eclair, for example, and a link pops up, I can click and it'll take me exactly to the website of where that eclair is from. So back to books, I have an Oh Joy lifestyle book coming out next year that we've been working on. This book, I did not want to do. I've had people in my life saying, you know, you've been writing these business books, but there's no photos and there's no DIYs and it's not really about your brand. That was you as a business consultant. It should be something that looks beautiful, like your blog. And I said, oh, I don't want to be another blogger that has a book. And again, because I was scared. I was and I still am scared. Are people going to buy it? Are people going to like it? Do they really care to have the things that I want to do in a book format? But I realized, you know, I've seen some amazing books come out of bloggers. And again, not just bloggers, but people who have some other specialty, some other thing that they're really strong at. And so I try to remember that. I'm not just a blogger, I'm also a designer. I have creative ideas, and I have ideas that I can put into a book that, yes, people will buy. And so here we go. We're working on a book right now, and that will come out next spring. Okay, so real quick, I'm just going to run through social media, because what this all comes down to at the end of the day is that none of the things I have done would have been possible without social media. My husband always jokes to me, he's like, you could have never had your job 10 years ago. And I couldn't, because nobody would have known what I have to do. And to be able to reach people would have taken a lot longer. It would have been one of those things that it would have just been harder for people to find out about me. And I really feel so grateful to have developed a blog and a business in this time, because without this, I wouldn't be able to reach people. I wouldn't be able to reach fans and followers and people who like my aesthetic for when things come out. They're the first ones to embrace a line. They're the first ones to embrace a book. They're the first ones to congratulate me when I say I'm having a baby. And so like that support system that we all build, that we're all working to build, is invaluable to whatever else it is in your career that you want to do. All those things outside of blogging. Okay. So I've said a couple times, you are not just a blogger. Because for me, I really feel like a blog and all the social media attached to it is a vehicle for whatever else it is that you do. Are you a designer? Do you make some type of craft? Do you have some type of product? Do you have a store? Are you a baker? Are you a dance instructor? Whatever it is, to have that blog, as you know, is invaluable to whatever you're doing. But just remember, you are not just a blogger, because when you introduce yourself, there's that other thing that you do as well. One of my good friends, Megan Taylor Lasco, who wrote the book Craft Inc., she calls it a slashy. And it's very LA to say, I'm an actress / model. But really, in this world too, we're all kind of slashies. I'm a designer / blogger / author. And I think it's one of those things that back in the day, people frowned upon. It's like, well, do you just not really know what you want to do? And it's like, no, I just happen to do a bunch of different things, and they all kind of work together. Figure out what you want to do. So I think that's one of the things, is that I find sometimes I have friends or colleagues who say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. But all of those things feel a little bit disconnected from each other. Which one of those things really do you want to do? And do you really think that you can do or figure out how to do? And that's part of sort of number 3, research ways to get there. I would love to be an action kung fu star on movies, or be a stunt double for movies. Like really, that was one of the things I wanted to do in my other life because of my karate background. But you know what? I'm really just not built for that. I don't have the stamina for it anymore. And so there are certain things that are very realistic and certain things that are just more of those pipe dreams. And it's not to say don't go for those pipe dreams, but out of all of those things you want to do, because we all want to do 100 million things, what are those things that you either are currently skilled to do or can be skilled to do pretty quickly, and you can figure out how to do them? Okay, so knock on every virtual door. This is that whole thing where I'm constantly trying to make things happen, and what I want you to always be thinking about. Because again, there's nothing to dreaming big if you're not going to go out and get them yourselves. Because those people are not going to find you unless you tell them about who you are. I want to give you a good example. I'm very lucky to have a really great set of friends in LA who are women owners, who are entrepreneurial, who are very like go-getter. Like seriously, I can't even imagine having a better group of people to surround myself with. But I have this friend named Ellen Bennett, who has an apron company called Headley & Bennett. And she is super young. She's 26 years old, and I've only met her maybe about 6 months ago. But she has the energy of a cartoon character, and she will go around to different restaurants across the country, Michelin star-rated restaurants, these top restaurants, and she will literally show up in the kitchen at these chefs saying, wear my apron, here's one, I want to show you what they do, I want to show you how amazing they are. She is the only person I know who still goes door to door to do things like that. A lot of people will do it virtually, which is what I tend to do, but it just reminds me, like, here she is, pretty young, very successful, and she's making things happen physically by going after these potential things. She is now, her aprons are in every major restaurant in LA, as well as internationally in New York. She's got these amazing accounts with huge companies where she makes aprons for. And for me to see her as a friend is like super inspirational, because it's one of those things that people forget. You have to go after those things that you want. And then finally, I said a few times how there's lots of things I do that scare me, and it may seem like, okay, we get it, you do things that scare you. But really, it's those things that get you out of your comfort zone, it's those things that challenge you as a person, and it's those things that get you to that next level, wherever it is that you want to be, that really, make you happy, I think. So that was the final thing, is do something that scares you. In general, I just want to say that I really feel like whatever we are, whatever we're all doing, whatever reason it is that we're all here, there's that motivation that we all have to do something else. I feel like it's great to be happy where you are, and we should all be happy where we are, but we always want to get to that next level. So what is it that brings us there? And thank you.
So Joy is going to be taking some questions for a few minutes, if you have any.
How helpful have you found your blogging platform?
My blogging platform, specifically the one that I use? Well, I use Typepad. Does anyone else here use Typepad? No? Most people use it. You moved to WordPress. Most of you use WordPress, right? Yes? Yes. Okay, so I'm probably the minority to use Typepad. I have it because I've used it from the very beginning, and luckily it's grown. It's not like Blogger, which tends to be a little bit limiting with HTML and coding and stuff. So for me, it's been fine. The only thing is that I have a .blogs URL, which is not ideal. I would love for it to not have that. But I chose specifically not to transfer my blog just to ohjoy.com, because ohjoy.com for me represents my whole brand and not just my blog. So I found it to be great, minus this ordeal we had a couple weeks ago where it was attacked. Is that why you're changing? Yeah, it was attacked by some hackers who were holding it for ransom, and that was a Typepad thing, not a me-specific thing. But if I were to start a blog now, I would say use WordPress.
You mentioned how some people around you really, you learn from them. I wonder if you would say you've ever had mentors, or if that's something you would encourage people to do.
Yeah, I would. It's funny, I did mention my friends, and I feel like having that circle of women, especially, and having the circle of entrepreneurial women, some who are also mothers, for me has been the greatest gift. I think that when you're trying to find a community, especially if you are not working the normal 9-to-5 job, if you are not working a typical career, to find people who do those types of things, who are freelancers, who have their own businesses, whatever it is, has been the best thing for me. Because before that, nobody understood what I did. People still don't understand what I do, but at least I know that those people understand what I do, and they get it, and we don't have to explain to each other, why are you able to take lunch at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Why are you always on your phone? Because you have to Instagram everything you do. So to me, my friends have been my mentors. I did recently get an official mentor last year. It kind of happened by accident. I had a woman approach me who has had multiple businesses. She's older. She lives in LA, and she was just saying, I think that you could be doing X, Y, and Z. And I said, oh, really? Why? And so she kind of approached me in that capacity, but not with any expectations. And I just sort of have brought her on as an unofficial mentor to run business ideas by. So that's amazing too, but that's something that I didn't seek. It just sort of happened. And it's a little bit harder to find someone like that, because there's a million people I could say that I could approach. I would love to be my mentor, that I would love to learn from, but they don't know you, and they don't know me, and so that was a little harder. But I think really it's the peers that make it. Oh, okay. Yes.
Hi, Jo. You said that you wanted to go into YouTube and start doing some TV or filming work, and felt really uncomfortable doing it when you first started out and being in front of the camera. So what did you do? How did you make yourself do it and get comfortable with it?
I mean, I'm still uncomfortable in front of the camera, to be honest, but I just keep practicing. if you look at even, and my employees will know because they are there when I'm doing these videos and they're off on their desk and stuff, and I'll be talking to the camera and I will, not just the messing up part, because that happens, but just sort of talking slowly, not talking too fast, making sure you enunciate, all of those things. You know, I said, should I go to one of those schools where they teach you how to talk in front of the camera? And we have those in LA, but it just seemed like people told me, you know what, for what you want to do, I'm not trying to be a broadcast journalist, I'm not trying to be a host of some talk show, just keep doing it and you will get better and better and better. And I have a video series coming out next week called Dressing the Bump, which is about maternity style. And I was just watching the first edit today and I was like, wow, I guess I've gotten better. You know, I could see where I messed up, but at the same time, it's way better than last year, the very first video that I had to talk on camera. So I think it's like anything else, it's that practice and you get more comfortable with it.
And do you think your blog readers have found it a fantastic way to get to know you better and have more of a personal connection with you, do you think? Because now they can properly see you and hear you.
I think so, but it's interesting. I'd be interested to hear tomorrow with the YouTube conversation because I find it's different. I thought that when I started a YouTube channel, all of my readers would just go and watch the videos, but it's really not the case because I think video is still growing. I think it's one of those things because we're on our phones and we're so mobile, it's not actually that easy to watch a video anytime you want. Let's just say you are looking at my blog and you're at work or you are at a coffee shop. You're not going to just press play and the sound is going to go all over the place. So you'll be like, oh, okay, Joy's a video, I'll watch it later, and then you don't watch it later. And so, you know, I have found, and this is something that we're still working on, is that idea of like having to grow the YouTube base separately and having to look at that as a different audience because there are people who go to YouTube to watch videos. And there are people who go to YouTube when they see, oh, there's a cute baby video or a cute kitten video. And that's most of my readers. They only go to it when someone tells them to. They're not on YouTube scrolling, you know, trolling for content. So that's just something I think it will evolve with time as more and more people start to watch video. But I think we treat it as two separate things.
We have a question just here.
Oh yeah, hi. My brother lives in New Jersey.
Yes.
And he very kindly brought me back to England some of your products from Target.
Oh, nice.
So I love the bin bags with the polka dots on them.
Thank you.
But how do you decide, you know, what products to create? Like, where did the inspiration come for polka dot bin bags? You know.
Yeah, for that one specifically for
Yeah.
Target. Well, I was in a place where when I had the opportunity to pitch that line, I knew that it was specifically for party and entertaining. So I knew of the category, but once we secured that and we knew that it was going to happen, I mean, I've honestly had the best time working with them. I had the experience many years before and I got a taste of it, but now as the designer, as it being my brand and my name, it was cool to see how much say I actually have. I mean, sometimes you think you work with these large corporate companies and they're just going to use your name and then they're really going to design it. But I was very clear from the beginning, I'm a designer, I'm not one of those people who is going to partner with a brand and then let you do all the work. I actually want to do all the work, minus the manufacturing part of it. And so I was able to basically go to them with all the patterns, all of the products. We drew everything out flat in Illustrator 2D. I want party hats with scalloped edges. I want gold foil dots on them. I want shiny gold on everything. And I would see samples. It was matte gold. I said, matte gold looks like brown when you put it on plastic. It has to be shiny gold or we're not doing it. So it worked out in the sense that I was able to pretty much get most of my vision to come through. Now, we designed, there was right now in the current collection maybe 40 products. We probably designed 3 or 4 times that many, knowing that not everything would actually work in sampling or it'd be too expensive for that particular customer, or whatever logistics wouldn't work out, and so that we would have to narrow it down. So we definitely over-designed and over-sampled and then chose the best of the best. But there's really nothing that came out that I didn't have a say on, that I didn't give approval on, that I didn't say, oh, I love this. I mean, really, it all came together so well.
Hi. Probably doesn't happen to you anymore, but in the early days, how often did you get a no, and how did you pick yourself up from that?
Oh, it happens a lot. I mean, yes, you were saying in the early days maybe it happened more, but it still happens quite often, and especially from the beginning. I'll give you that example with anthropology. That was a job I really, really wanted. And now the no wasn't necessarily a no, you're terrible, we don't want you, but it was a no, like that dream that you had to work for us isn't going to happen. And I think it's kind of one of those things, like I said, it actually made me work harder. And so that whole picking yourself up thing, I think at the moment, at the time, you don't think that there's anything better. You don't think that you're going to find something more amazing than what that dream was. But somehow you do, because you change that path. That's like what Kat's saying about all the buses. I changed that path of where I was going, and it actually led me to bigger and better things. And one thing I didn't mention about that whole anthropology thing is that a couple years later, after I'd started my blog, after I started my business, I was very happy being self-employed. Even though things were still questionable every day, I wasn't sure how long my business would last. They called me and they said, oh, we have that job open now. And I didn't want it anymore. And you know, it wasn't that I didn't love the brand, I still do. I still have a great relationship with them, but I was much happier on that new path that I had set out. So I think more than anything, it's really just about thinking about what's that new path, and that new path will take me somewhere better. I forgot they needed a microphone.
Go on.
Hi.
Hi.
You show your little girl in your Instagram and your blog. I do the same with mine, and I would like to know what do you think about that? Because sometimes I don't know if the blog keeps growing, if it's good or not, and I would like to know what do you think about
Of course. I mean, I get that question pretty regularly, especially since I've had a daughter. I think the whole personal sharing, certainly it's up to your comfort level. I will never tell anybody to share any parts of their life they don't feel comfortable with. If you go back to my blog in the first 2 to 3 years, you really didn't even see me. You knew what my name was, you would know what I did for a living, but you didn't necessarily see me. I wasn't doing a fashion blog where I was posing in front of the camera. And it really started the point where there became a lot more blogs out there, and there was more competition. And even as somebody who had been doing it for a long time prior to that, you would think, oh, what does it matter to you? You've been doing it for so long, you already have all these readers. But really, it makes everybody step up their game. It makes you feel like, how are people gonna connect with me versus everybody else? So for me, it wasn't about having to show myself to feel like people needed to connect with me, but it was more feeling like I wanted to connect with other people. And other people can't connect with me unless they see my face, unless they know what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling or what I look like. And if you guys have read my blog, you know it's not every single day that I'm sharing super personal things, but when I do share those are actually the days that I love blogging the most, especially after becoming a mother and sharing things about that, whether it's good or bad or in between. That's when I connect with my readers, people who I will never get to meet in person the most. And so I made that personal choice when my daughter was born. My husband and I talked about it. I said, hey, are we gonna let people see the baby? Are we gonna share that? And he said, yeah, he's like, I'm comfortable with it. We both agreed. We have certain limitations. I mean, we don't show her naked. We don't talk about our childcare or school. We don't share personal things like that because certainly we want to keep safe as well. But at the same time, I'm comfortable with it for now. At some point it might change. When she's in school, we might decide it's different. But I think the way I look at it is that there are people out there, celebrities, reality stars, movie stars, and you see their life way more than you see mine. I'm like on this tiny, tiny spectrum, and I feel like my life is really not anything much compared to theirs, and so it just seems like just a smaller worry for me. But again, it really has to be a comfort level for you. And I talk about this to some of my other friends who would be more in the mommy blog category, where they share a lot of their everyday life. Maybe every day is their everyday life. And I think they probably feel the same way, where it's like it's a comfort level for them. They're okay with it for now, but they will take it as each day or a year comes.
how much do you think has social media taken over your life? And do you have anybody helping you with sort of tweeting or pinning or putting things on Facebook? I mean, I can imagine just, you must be just busy 15 hours a day if you wanted to cover all those.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's time consuming for sure. But I think for me, I do tend to focus on a couple things I love the most at one time. Yes, I showed you, I have Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram, but usually at one given time, there's usually only 2 things that I really, really love the most and I spend the most time on myself. In terms of other people helping me, I really only have help with my Facebook page because I noticed last year our Facebook page was fine and I had followers and fans, but I was hearing just more about how the fact that everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on Twitter, not everybody was on Instagram. I think more people are on it now, but Facebook is one of those platforms where your friend from middle school is on there. You know, whereas Twitter, I think it's a little bit more people who want to follow other people. They have to kind of more actively go onto it. So we really made an effort to share more content on Facebook. And it's not a ton, really. It's the blog posts for the day plus 1 or 2 additional bits of inspiration. But just making the point of doing that and making it something other than just your blog defaulting to your Facebook page has really helped. I mean, the growth and the engagement on Facebook is great, and so I find that it's really worth it to make sure you're present there. So when I hired my first employee last year, who is my assistant, that's one of the things that she helps with. Now I will make sure I know everything that's going on there. I still sort of need to have creative control and art direction over everything, but she will physically do it and space them apart. But everything else I do, all the pinning I do, all the Instagrams are for me, all the tweets are for me, and for me right now, my 2 favorite things are Pinterest and Instagram. And I think it shows, whichever 2 things you're really into, it's pretty much where you have the most followers because people enjoy what you're doing. The passion shows through. It's the most genuine. And I also think it's really hard to 100% give your all into all of those things at one time. So that's something I always recommend to people who are just signing on to some of those social platforms is, let's just focus on a couple things for right now. We can work on growing the other things later. So which ones are the most interesting to you? For me, Instagram is great because, like I said, it's instant, it's visual, it helps me share not only my personal life, but also my life as a designer and the things that I see. And then Pinterest, because I mean, gosh, it's like you go on there and there's so many things to see and be inspired by, and it's pretty much taken over the version of what I used to do 10 years ago, which was rip things out of magazines and put them in a scrapbook or on a bulletin board, and that's the virtual version for me. So those are the 2 things where I'll go to consistently throughout the day, whereas the others I'll make sure to check in, but it's not quite as much.
Hi Joy, I just wanted to ask you, how do you maintain that work-life balance? How do you sort of switch off from your blog and all the other strands of your business?
I don't know.
Do you?
I wrote a post about this one time where I said, I don't really think that there's balance, because balance implies imperfection. It implies that everything equally weighs out, so it's like this. For me, it's definitely a juggle. I mean, there are always those balls in the air, and I'm just hoping I don't drop one. And sometimes I do, and I've realized it's usually okay. I think that as a mother, I, and probably other people feel this way, you're kind of always figuring it out. I have a few things that have helped me along the way, for sure. I think is knowing your priorities in terms of work. What are the things you really want to do, because you might not be able to do every single one. And even same thing in your personal life. I used to work out and go to the gym 5-6 times a week. I can't do that anymore. I used to watch like 4 hours of TV a night. I can't do that anymore. But those things are not saying those were so important in my life, but those are the things that I liked doing before I had to reshift my priorities. So for me, it's about asking for help, for sure, having childcare. I thought everyone thinks, oh, you work from home, or I did work from home. You work from home, you can take care of a kid at the same time. If you've ever tried it, it's impossible. Those kids need things, and then you can't focus on whatever your work is. And so once I took away some of that mom guilt of saying, okay, I can actually have somebody else help me take care of my child when I'm working. It's okay. I don't have to be with her every single hour of the day. Life will go on. And if anything, I think that having a child see your mother and your father or your parents be happy and be successful in what they're doing is inspiring to them. Ruby is so funny and sassy and all this stuff, but she's like, okay, Mom, are we going to a Target photo shoot? And I'm just like, who says that? But she gets to go with me to these cool things, and she gets to see photographers shooting images of whatever it is, and she goes, let me see that. She looks behind the camera and she sees it. And it recognizes these things that not every kid gets to see. So to me, I think it's pretty cool. Learning to ask my husband for help, which I was terrible at, and I still am, but you realize your partner is there to help you also. Prioritizing, and then also just feeling like it's okay. I used to feel really bad for not being able to cook dinner every night and doing takeout and all this stuff, and you know what? I mean, these days, especially when I was in my first trimester a few weeks ago, I couldn't do anything. I could barely stay awake. And so you just have to feel like it's okay. Life will go on, everybody will still love you, and people will forgive you if you're not exactly what you think is perfect.
Hi there.
Hi.
It was really great and inspiring to hear about how you pitched so intensely from the beginning of your career, and as a child even, to get so much stuff done. I was wondering, how do you like to be pitched, and how, and if you've ever worked with designers on smaller runs rather than large manufacturers?
I'll answer the second part first. Yes, I have worked with designers on smaller runs. I did a collaboration with a company called Twig Creative, who's based out of Utah. Last year, they had these great wooden cameras for kids, and we just did, it wasn't more of a design of, as much as it was just sort of me picking colors from my colors on their products. But that was something where we did a very small run of an Oh Joy version of their camera and of this woven chair they did. I've also worked with a company called Winter Water Factory, who's based out of Brooklyn, to do a bunch of baby onesies and dresses that had the floral pattern that you see on my wallpaper on a bunch of pieces, and that was another thing. So for me, it's not about, oh, once you work with these big brands, you never go back to a small brand, because to me, there's great things about small boutique independent brands too. It's just a matter of what's right, and it's just a matter of what products I want to do. I'm not going to slap my patterns on anything. I certainly want it to be things that I would buy and that I would use, and that's pretty much my basis for it. And what was your first question again? I need to get right away what it is that you are trying to pitch me. So for example, when I pitch to other brands, I put together a deck similar to what I had put together for my presentation for you, where right off the bat, you see boom, boom, image, 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 because for me, that's my strength. I can convey the best in images. In words, hopefully I can talk that through too, but I need to see exactly what it is that you want, and then a shorter summary. I don't really like to see a ton of text because it just gets all muddied up and we all get a million emails, so wow me with the visuals.
I never ask questions, I'm a bit nervous. One silly question, are you the most followed person on Pinterest?
Yes.
And,
I don't like to go around saying that, but if you ask me.
Okay. You said you wanted to do bed linen and you've done the Target range, and I'm really excited you've got a book coming out next year and things, but what do you want to see next? What's the thing you want to do next, like baby clothes? Or is there something that you haven't done yet that you really want to do?
Yeah, there's lots of things. I mean, I think the problem with me is that once I do something, I'm just like, what's next? And I sometimes see it as a curse because I can't appreciate that moment as much, but I think that's also probably the driven part of me, where I just want to keep moving on and going forward. So I would love to do more products. So for me, more home decor, more baby, for sure. All the things that you guessed I would probably want to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hello. When you do these projects with different companies, what comes first? Is it the big idea, I want to do a range for Target, or is it the little ideas, I've got a bunch of patterns that would work really well? Oh, and I could make party items with them.
Say that again. So you're saying
do you come at it from kind of big picture, or would you come at it with just, I've got these ideas for different patterns and they could be made into products, and then I could work with this?
It really depends. It depends. I mean, I think for me, Target, for example, is a brand that I've always respected, not only design-wise and price point-wise, and also scale and reach. But so for me, there's a million things I would have potentially wanted to design. So what it came down to was, I want to work with Target? Does Target want to work with me? Once that's a yes, then it's sort of what makes sense to go from there. But it's not always that. Sometimes, like I gave that example about wallpaper, I wanted to design wallpaper, so at the time I found out who was a great company that I could partner with to do that. So I think it really depends on the type of a thing. Certainly when you're approaching brands, you should think about who your first choice is, for sure, and you should make it clear to them that they are your first choice, because that's always a great partnership, to know that there's that mutual love and admiration there.
Sorry guys. I'm here to ruin the party, so thank you so much, Joy, for giving us so much time and so much inspiration.